I'm going to now request someone who is, if I can call it that, part of our SHRM India expert panel, right? Who will have a lot of interesting views to share on her experiences in various organizations that she's been with. Some of them being the best in the world. Currently Microsoft, before that Veritas. Veritas of course went on to become Symantec. She's walked across organizations, across continents, including the likes of US, Europe, Asia, and of course India. She's presently the director of Microsoft, which got mentioned in the morning. And I'm going to say this. I think this is the session that most of us would have been waiting for. I'm going to request you, Jodie, to take stage. Yeah, and it's going to be something that's very interesting.
Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited. I apologize, I have a bad cough and a bad throat. If I sound a bit hoarse, please don't take it personally. I first of all just want to ask the audience, how many of you have experienced this severe economic environment in your entire life? First time? Raise of hands. Okay, quite a large population. Second time? Okay. Fifth time? Not too many. Okay. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I sort of did economic downturn that I had the fortune of experiencing. It's not fun at all. But one ends up learning a lot of things out of this. Part of my work life, I actually spent a long time in the semiconductor industry, which, if you really look at it, over the last 30 years, it has peaks and valleys each and every 2 years. So you end up ramping your workforce, business takes off, business goes down, then you end up doing some level of correction. And I experienced this in the Silicon Valley. And it was very interesting to watch it because you go out to the market and you want to hire the best people, and then 2 years later you got to just completely stop hiring, and then you got to lay off people, and it's not fun. I still remember some of my days when I had to sit and make long lists of very, very bright people, right? And then I joined Microsoft and I came to India, and India economy was doing fantastically well, 9% growth. Microsoft, great company, always been profitable, always really scaled and been really successful. And then I had to deal with another downturn. So it's just not been fun, but life happens. For Microsoft, it's been a very interesting journey and a very interesting experience. First time in the history of the company, they've actually seen a drop in profits, right? And the company is in a little bit of a shock. There are people who've grown in the organization that have never worked anywhere else. So guess what? They've only seen good times. They've never actually experienced anything like this before. And these are very senior people. Even the head of HR, she's a wonderful person. She actually came out of the business, Lisa Drummond. She's been with the company. She was saying, she says, I've actually never experienced something like this before. A lot of us haven't experienced this before, but you can imagine for a giant like Microsoft, it's just a rude shock. And I think that sort of makes you understand what diverse experiences can do to an individual, right? Working across different industries, working across different geographies, working across different roles, different functions, just teaches you a lot and really makes you a pretty solid individual. My own team here, most of them have never seen this before, and they're very demotivated. And I like what somebody said. There are two sorts of HR people, some who are very resilient and some who are sort of helpless, right? So I had somebody in my team come to me and said, Joji, things are really bad. This is never going to get better. He was one of the staffing folks. When are we going to start ramping again? My team is very demotivated. And I said, why do you sound so, sort of negative early in the morning? And he said, I just read the Economic Times and it's just gloom and doom. I looked at him and I said, don't read the Economic Times, right? I mean, if it with you, I don't read the Economic Times. I actually stopped reading a lot of the news. I pick and choose what I read every day. I do keep a tab, and I was very interested in what's going to happen in the elections, very interested in what was going to happen in the US elections, very interested in what's going to happen with some of like the political environments. But I don't read a lot of stuff about who's losing money, who's making money, because this is just a part of the journey. It's going to end one day, and it's going to get better, but it's not going to get better soon. So let me speak a little bit about sort of the environment, and then I'll speak specifically about the HR implications. So I'm going to talk really about three things, and I forgot to ask, how much time do I have?
1:30 until the end of your session, we can have 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll try to finish before. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the economic scenario as we see it, as we are sort of watching and observing, specifically from a Microsoft India perspective. Talk a little bit about HR leadership, and then I'm going to talk about the systems approach. This is something that I'm trying to inculcate as a skill in the HR team that I have, because I think it's a very powerful approach. It's a simple but very powerful approach. So if you really think about the environment, I read Times of India this morning, just saw the headline. Actually wasn't reading it, somebody else was reading it, I just saw the headline. It says Indian economy is going to grow at 6.7%. That's pretty good news, right? The world economy is not going to grow anywhere in the near future for a few years. I think the elections have made us stable. I'm not going to dwell a lot of time because we've already heard some of this morning. I think the government is very keen to stimulate the economy. But some of the challenges that we are facing as an organization is very different, right? We were a point product sales company. We went and sold windows, we went and sold whatever, right? We had these flagship products, we made a lot of money on them, our revenues were great, we went and sold them. Indian customers were doing very well. They were investing a lot of money in the IT infrastructure. That meant a lot of business for us. Suddenly, some of that IT spend, as it's called, has really shrunk. Right? I was reading some numbers. Reliance, I'm not sure if anybody's here from Reliance. Reliance is an important customer for us. Their IT spend was about $8 billion, or infrastructure spend was about $8 billion. They've shrunk it down to about $2 billion, right? That's a huge impact on folks like us. Similar story across the Tatas, across the Infosys, across the Wipros. All of these people are our partners and we work very closely with them. There's also a lot of conversations happening in their respective boardrooms where they're saying, how am I going to improve productivity and how am I going to reduce my costs, right? Some of them have never really had these conversations before. I just happened to be at the Infosys campus 2 weeks ago and I spent a day with their HR team and I was talking to their head of HR and she was saying, she said, we're still going to ramp, we're still going to hire a lot of college folks, but their focus is very different. A lot of these partners of ours are more worried about the cost of talent because there's a lot more pressure from their respective customers on how they're going to deliver some of these services, and all this has a ripple effect on companies like ours. Certainly, some of these decisions were being made at a CXO level. So we went and sold some of these products to a CIO. Now the CEOs and the board is getting interested. You know, if you're spending $500,000 or $1 billion or whatever in IT, they want to be involved and they want to understand how this is going to impact the bottom line of the organization. And then the question we have to ask is, do we have the skills? Are our people, are our sales manager or whatever it is, do they have the skill set to go sell to a CEO? Do they have the ability to go make a great pitch to a board of directors, right? They've been used to selling to people at very different levels and you do require different skills. So part of the conversation when we were in a meeting one day, we were hearing and one of the questions somebody on my team asked is, are our people ready to sell like that, right? Our people are not all of them are ready, right? So what does it mean for an HR? We can sit there and just sort of ignore because it's not a problem, right? Sales guys have to meet their quotas and their numbers and, should we be really bothered? But it has a huge impact on people, it has a huge impact on HR, and I think HR can show a lot of leadership in that space. So I'll just move on. If we look at the outlook, right? India is really poised for some great things. Microsoft as a company is very excited about the opportunity of business in India, right? And I just happened to receive a copy of the 2020. I think it just came out a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago. It really it paints a pretty good picture about what the future of economic growth looks like in India. But if you read it, it tells you a very different thing. It talks about untapped verticals, public sector. We've seen a huge amount of investment and our business focus happening now in public sector. Now again, think about it implications from an HR perspective. Selling to a government is very different than selling to private sector, right? You can't send the same people to go have the same conversation, right? There's a huge, hopefully going to be a huge focus on healthcare, huge focus on, media. And if you really add all of that up, there's a lot of opportunity that's there. But you can't just get excited about that opportunity and say, life is going to get better, life is going to be the same that it was last year, and we're just going to go make tons of money and we're just going to go sell all of our products. No, it's not that simple. It's very important for us to sort of internalize and really imbibe that maybe the opportunities are going to be very different. They're going to come from very different areas, and we may or may not, and I don't know if it applies to all of you or some of you, but this is how we're looking at it and saying, we don't know if we have the skills today, right? We really don't understand whether we have the appropriate skills of going after some of these opportunities, but we are also extremely cautious about it. So I'll just ask folks to sort of think about the realistic side of the upturn and say, what does it really mean for our organization and what does it really mean for our people? Because it doesn't mean economic 6.7% economic growth equals more jobs, same life as it was before. And one of the things, I happened to be in Redmond, Redmond is our headquarters. I happened to be there last month, and Steve Ballmer, who's our CEO, gave a pretty thought-provoking speech, and first time I've sort of heard him talk in a very different tone. And he basically said that this was about 1,000 people that he was addressing, pretty senior level people. And he sort of said to them, he says, don't think that the economy, at least in the US, is going to get better in the next 2 to 3 years. We don't even think that the US economy has hit bottom yet, right? US economy has a lot of implications on companies like us and a lot of other companies in India. And he basically sort of said, you've got to think about how you're going to do your work, more work with less, right? Or more work with whatever you have today. So, for some people, it's a huge shock. So again, HR implication, how do you get people motivated and excited and resilient in this environment? Because it can be pretty demotivating. Suddenly, I'm not going to get more money, my travel may be restricted, not going to be able to have those big meetings every month in a fancy hotel. Some of that life is going to change. But how do you get people excited and motivated to be able to do that? And the way we are thinking about this is, it's not just a downturn, it's basically a fundamental reset of the world economy. We should not be thinking about it. So the reason I'm sort of stressing on this a little bit more than I would normally is, as HR professionals, I'm assuming all of you are HR professionals, as HR professionals, it's very important for us to understand the economics of the situation and the implications of the situation and kind of the roadmap of what, at least what seems like the next 2 to 3 years. And sort of imbibe that, then we can help our line management make some pretty smart, decision. I'm not going to go through the slide. So I actually had a problem with my laptop. My laptop fell and it sort of made some mess with my deck. 2-3 things. While I actually believe, my personal philosophy is that every time you have a slowdown, it's a great time to take stock, right? It's a great time to sort of sit back. A lot of us do not sit back and just take stock. We just sort of get into the frenzy of making things happen and delivering and making sure that we are owing our line management and our employees with the fantastic work we do. But very few of us actually sit back and take stock and say, am I running too fast? Am I running in the right direction? Am I making sure that others are with me? Or am I just sort of heading in some specific way? One of the things it sort of forced me to think about is a lot of our processes. What's really sort of coming to light is that some of our processes, we just grew so fast in India, we just didn't pay attention. And Microsoft is a very entrepreneurial company, so you just don't automatically get everything from Redmond and apply it here. You kind of create your own things. And what that has led to is a lot of inconsistent processes across all of our businesses, a lot of, what I say, wastage of resources. But it's really we're really taking the time to sit back and take stock and say, what's working, what's not working. We're actually partnering. So the 3 people from my team are partnering with our own internal IT development team and figuring out what tools can we create which will automate some of our processes or make some of our processes more efficient. Because ultimately, there is going to be a focus on efficiency, productivity, etc. Preparing for the upturn. One of the things I'll talk about here is I'm getting clarity on the business. What does the business look like? What does the investment in India look like? What does the income plan look like? Getting clarity and understanding. And believe me, business doesn't give it to us on their own. So we have to sort of go knocking every day or every week and saying, what's going on? You need to tell us, right? I basically attend the what's called the India Leadership Team every quarter. All of the India leaders get together, and I always have an hour or two. We meet for about 6 hours, and I always have an hour or two where I take stock and say, what's happening? Where is your business headed? We have 8 businesses that don't sort of speak to each other. So it's very important as the HR leader and as an HR professional to really get clarity on where is your business headed. If you don't know that, you can't get anything else done, right? If you don't know what your business is looking at as an outcome, if you don't understand that, you can't, you really cannot decide where to start from. And that's what sort of creates the chaos. And these days, a lot of leaders, it's actually very interesting, I'll actually say that some of the leaders in the business, that were these bright, brilliant leaders, are actually themselves very daunted by what's happening in the economy, right? They themselves are very frazzled. So you can't frazzle them more, you've actually got to help them get their own clarity of thinking around, have you thought about, are you going to need this many people, what skills are you going to need, going and having those conversations. So we're also figuring out right now and saying, somebody had asked a question on taking bets on people, your good people, how do you sort of keep them motivated? We're actually, because of the slowdown, we're saying, let's reshuffle some things, right? Let's think disruptively and say, what can we do to re-energize some of the things that may not be feeling or some of the individuals? So we are actually very diligently tucking people, and I'm doing that in my HR team, out of their comfort zones and going and putting them in very different jobs, out of their comfort zone and seeing are they going to really survive. And people who are good, people who you want to keep, people who you actually think are going to survive, folks that you actually think you want to take a bet on will be the people who will survive. The ones that we're just good in doing one thing. Actually, somebody asked a question around performance versus capability. I'm a big believer of capability, right? If you have the capability, you can actually go do anything. If you're just performing to your KPIs in one particular job, you may not be the best talent for the company. So you've got to think about that, right? So again, take stock, sit back, think about what's working, not working in HR, help your business leaders think about it. And most important is communication, right? I've actually never realized, the first time in my 21 years of my career, I realized how important communication is, right? Whatever comes out of the mouth of the leader can have a lot of implications. I spend a lot of my time coaching the senior leaders in Microsoft India what to say and what not to say. And I am absolutely fearless when it comes to coaching them. And some of them don't like it, right? They're very senior professionals, they, officials, and they think of what I should and shouldn't say. It's very important. I think HR can play a very significant role in managing the change that's happening by just spending a lot more time on communication and being very prescriptive about, but you can't be prescriptive if you don't have credibility. You first got to work on your credibility. If you have credibility, you can actually make a lot more things happen. So you've got to really think about that. Which takes me to, credibility takes me to the competencies, right? We have a whole list of competencies, but I'll talk about the 4 that I'm most passionate about and the 4 that we are really trying to sort of push for. We've already heard things around business acumen. The need for HR to understand the business is so important. And when I work in the semiconductor industry, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but a lot of the engineers have to spend time in clean rooms. Now, clean rooms are very nicely air-conditioned, no dust sort of an environment, but you have to wear a bunny suit, which means you're covered from your head down to your foot, right? And you spend 10 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours sitting in a clean room. An HR person who's got to recruit, I asked my team, I actually spent 10 days there and I used to go to the clean room very often and I actually used to go and see how these machines work. So I asked some of the recruiters, I said, have you ever been to a clean room? And they were like, no. And I said, how are you going to explain to an engineer what life is like, right? Especially the fresh grad, especially when you're trying to find people from a different industry. So I made it a point, anybody on my team, recruiter, comm person, benefits person, generalist, whoever, had to go to a clean room and spend a day. Just spend a day experiencing and understanding what does the company do, what is our technology, what does it feel to understand the environment. You're never going to get this done. I'll actually send people here on sales calls, right? Sales is not our only focus area, but it is one of our focus areas. So I've actually sent some of my senior HR people on sales calls to some very specific customers. And I actually went to some very difficult customers with some of the account managers, and I actually learned a lot. I went to a small city. I won't mention the customer's name, but I went to a small city, and I went along with one of the account managers and to attend a customer meeting, and I also was asked to talk about certain specific HR practices. And I realized what a difficult life this account manager has. There is no plane that goes there. So we went on a train. It took us 4.5, 5 hours to get on the train and get there. And there are no Avis or Hertz or anything, so no nice cars to come and pick you up. So you get into a regular old cab and it was summer, there's no air conditioning or nothing. And you go into the customer is not very nice, they keep you waiting, offer you food, offer you water, but they're not very friendly, not very nice, and you make a pitch to them, and then you come back all the way. So left home at like 5 in the morning, and I reached home at 11:30 in the evening, and I was exhausted. And I thought to myself, okay, I said, I can still go to my office at 8:30 in the morning. This poor account manager next day has to go to yet another customer and face the same thing. Then I realized that none of the HR business partners who actually worked with the sales team have ever been on a customer visit. So I put them in their commitments, they're all going to go to customers. Because if you don't understand that, and the reason I'm bringing that up is this is a great time to do it, right? Your recruiters are not as busy, your HR business partners are still as busy, but this is a great time to create that bond and really that deep connection with the employees. Business acumen I talked about, people acumen. Some of the stuff I talked about was understanding human behavior. You've got to understand human behavior. Trusted advisor. I think you spoke about this. You don't earn this, right? I mean, you don't get it automatically because you wear a title, right? Fortunately, what I love about Microsoft is nobody cares about titles. You can be anybody, right? If you don't have anything intelligent to speak, you have no value in the organization. But you could be at any level, but if you've got something important to say and you make sense, you have a lot of value. And we've got to instill that in our people. We've got to be able to have HR go and challenge. And I tend to agree with some of the provocative conversations that happened before. I struggle with that in my team. A lot of the HR people don't want to speak up. They don't want to challenge the leaders. They don't want to challenge. They're okay challenging middle-level managers. They're okay challenging employees. They're not okay challenging the leaders. They're not okay challenging sort of the second level of leaders. But you've got to build the skill. The fourth thing that I want to focus on is systems thinking. How many of you use systems model in your work? Raise of hands. Very few. I experienced that. 2 minutes? Yeah. Okay. I'll just stop here and I've actually got a model. I'll just send it to you. Let me just actually show this. In Microsoft, this is actually a competency that we measure HR people on, right? And we've actually taken the Hayes model and modified it to our own need. But if you see the blue box, that's sort of become the core, which is our focus around leadership, right? There's a huge focus around leadership because we believe that your leadership has to think a certain way and then they can drive certain behaviors and there's a lot of empowerment throughout the company. However, if the leaders don't think in a certain way, you're never going to get certain things done. I'll be more than happy to share this with you. I've also got another, actually I had a case study, but we don't have time. But, it'll be great for you to take your own problem and see what impacts, what risks, what opportunities do you have for your organization. And we actually have some of the HR folks think through this. We actually have a competency building class where people actually work on some case studies and actually work through imbibing this model. But it's a very simple thing. It just lets you connect. A lot of us focus, a lot of our leaders, and including us, we are either here, we keep talking about the problems that the economy is like this, and this is what we are faced with, or we say, let's go get whatever done, right? But we never sort of think about the holistic view of a problem. If you don't do that, if you can't think of a holistic view, you actually don't solve a lot of problems very well. And one thing that I've seen is, ever since we've got HR to sort of think like this and use some of this thinking, some of the leaders that we work with have actually really appreciated that because they said, this actually even makes me think about certain things that I don't normally think about, right? And so I gave you the example of solution selling, right? So everybody said, oh yeah, that's the best thing to do. We've got to sell solutions. That's how our revenues are going to grow. And that's how we're going to go after the market share. Well, hello, think about, do you have the right people? And then everybody sort of looks at you and says, yeah, I think my people can do it. Well, what competencies do you need? Does your account manager really know all the products? They're only used to selling 1 or 2 products. Do they know? Can they go have an intelligent conversation? And that's when then makes you think through and also helps you have that conversation with the leader. So I would encourage some of you, if you haven't used this before, to at least read through this, see if it makes sense for you. And I I strongly believe that if you really apply it to even your own problems or actually to some of your business problems, it makes a great tool for a great conversation with your leadership team. And some people have talked about this boardroom conversation. I actually don't talk about it anymore because, again, I do agree with you. If you do the right thing, you get invited. You don't need to ask for an invitation. And I'd rather get invited than ask for an invitation. That's my philosophy. Thank you.
I'm going to request Joji to leave the case and this with us.
Yeah.
The model. So we'll all have it. We can go around for questions. Can you get in there?
Saying that the first time Microsoft is seeing the downside of profits. Do you see a direct impact of Bill Gates not being on the executive board and demoralizing as a...
No, Bill is still pretty active.
Okay.
He still coaches team quite a bit. He's really not. This has a lot to do. This has a lot to do with the external environment. But yes, it does have a lot to do with our own strategy. And that's when I said first time I heard Steve talk very differently about strategy. And I think one of the biggest lessons for the company is that we've tried to do too many things and we've sort of gone away from our initial philosophy, let's do a few things but do them really, really well. And I think we're really getting back, which is really what Bill believed in. Yeah.
Rephrasing the same thing as you rightly said about business acumen. I personally also feel on the same lines. I think it's the right time and the time has come for the HR fraternity to actually make their hands dirty. Because till now, I think, since the last 5 years, as Anish also said, like everything was being taken for granted and the organizations were moving on and HR was actually recruiting people left, right and center because business wanted it. But somehow, in the last 5 years, the essence of knowing business has been lost with this department of fraternity. Again, I'm making the same statements like Anish had made, maybe provoking people to think about it. It's the right time to make your hands dirty. So when I say hands dirty, I think very few of the HR heads and managers have actually gone on the field, either for a sales call or have actually visited their production sites to see how the workmen have been actually manufacturing those small parts. Maybe it's a manufacturing unit or it's a service industry. So I personally feel the same thing, like it's the right time for all of us to really make our hands dirty, to empower ourselves to beat the resistance.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, we can sit and be victims and keep waiting to get an invitation to the boardroom, but let's smarten ourselves and educate ourselves. And I like the fact that it's not about studying, it's more about educating yourself and really adding value.
And that's the reason I think many times the HR people are not very easily accessible to the boardroom because as the gentleman also said, like only 15% people have filled up the PMS forms and the other things. Because it's all about what policies and SOPs and systems rather than talking about business.
Yeah.
So I'm just, we also used to have like, a thought just came to me, like we have different training programs, finance for non-finance people, we have HR for non-HR, but I think the right time has come, like we need to have a business acumen training program for the HR people or business fraternity. And it will not come from an outside vendor or outside consultant. And the kind of examples which you said, like you actually make all your team members really go to the field and actually see the kind of clean rooms they have. I think we have to actually take that approach now to really take this forward for understanding business from real business perspective to take this business forward. That's it.
No,
Neeraj would be employer of choice. And I think a question to most HR people, if they would approach the board on behalf of employees, wouldn't they also be the employer of choice?
Say that again, I didn't understand the question.
Like you said, you are willing to speak to the board, which means sometimes you do. And if HR was there, more as on staff behalf, like we used to have unions earlier. Now we don't have so many unions. So if employees' feedback was given to the board through HR, wouldn't that company also compete with it?
I believe is one of an independent third party. Anybody I interview for HR, I ask them the question, what do you think is the role of HR? The role of HR is to play a very independent third party role which is not aligned to either side. So you've got to understand how you think of the employees or what the employees are thinking of. And you've also got to understand what the business is all about. And then you've got to help find that middle approach. We actually do, Microsoft actually has a fantastic tool called MS Poll. For 10 years or 11 years now, we every year do that MS Poll, and it's very comprehensive. It talks about the culture of the company, about your managers, or feedback on managers. It talks about sort of the future, and all of us get rated out. So my scores are a part of my evaluation process, right? And that's why and it's completely anonymous. It's done by a third party. So all that is done on a yearly basis, just to take what the employees are thinking. So absolutely, each and every organization and HR has to play a very important role in it. You can't be the employee advocates all the time, and you can't always be aligning with the managers. You've got to take that middle role.
Yeah, there's a hand in the back.
There's two hands.
I just have two questions to ask. One would be, you talked about reshuffling that you were currently doing in your own team. Now, a lot of time what happens is if we do a reshuffling within our own department, let's say HR, if I reshuffle and make a recruiter get into the role of a payroll associate and vice versa, I think once the market is actually open, they will be the first people to leave. Because they have their own respective comfort zone in what they're doing and they're good at it. So, I don't know how welcome is that.
No, that's a very good question.
We can't see who's speaking.
No,
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Same thing, right? The fourth thing that you've got to go do is, these are conversations. These are conversations you have. I'll just give you my own example. I had a very bright person on my team who was doing staffing in Bangalore for a team, and then I had a need in Hyderabad to go do some very intensive recruiting, so I sent him there for about a year. He did a fantastic job, and then he got this kida in his head saying, I want to go to Redmond, right? And I looked at him, and this was about a year and a half ago, and so I said to him, I said, I'm not going to come in your way. You're a very bright individual. I will help you find a job, and we have a very good process in terms of going and working anywhere in the world. I said, but what do you want to do? Why do you want to go to Redmond? What do you want to learn? And he says, I just want to get, global exposure. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And I still remember this. I was sitting at the Novotel, Hyderabad, and we started this conversation at 9 p.m. in the lobby. And I sat and spent 2 hours with him till 11 p.m. trying to understand what is it that he wanted to go learn and achieve, right? And then I said, okay, what sort of a role will you get in Redmond? What are you thinking about? So he said, I'll get this HRBP role and this is what I'm interested in. And I said, what will you learn in that? So then I set up conversations for him to go speak with a few HRBPs in Redmond. And I said, speak to them and understand what is their job, what is it that they do. And I told him, I said, you have so much potential. I have so many needs here. I want you to do XYZ job. And, I think you're going to learn many more things compared to that. But I said, I'm not going to make this decision for you. You're going to make this decision. So I had him speak with about 3 individuals in the US. He spoke to them. Then he said, let me sleep on it. Let me think about it. I had another conversation with him. And then he agreed that, yes, no, I must stay here. He's the happiest person. He's one of my most enthusiastic, passionate employees. And now I keep asking him, I said, should we plan your next move to Redmond? He said, I don't want to go right now. Right? So you can't force these things. You've got to have conversation. I had another person who was working in people observation capability. Sorry, I'm taking time, but let me just give this example. This just happened last month. I asked her, I told her, why don't you go do this HR business partner role? She's like, Jyoti, she says, I'm 30 years old. At 50, I want to be a life coach. And this path will take me there. And I just looked at her and I said, I don't know where I'll be when you're 50. I said, but to be a life coach or an executive coach, if you don't understand what the business is about, I said, you're not going to make a good executive coach. And I said, if you continue in this path of whatever you are planning, it's not going to, again help you. So again, I had her go talk with different leaders who had used executive coaches, who had valued a particular coach versus another because of whatever. And then we convinced her to go do this job. I just had a one-on-one with her yesterday and I said, how's it going? Are you happy? And she says, I'm loving it, you know. So, you've got to do it in a very thoughtful manner. You've got to do it in a very planned manner. You can't force people.
I'm so sorry. Just one more thing. I'm pretty taking. I'm sorry about that. A lot of colleagues of mine who are in my department, who themselves are absolutely demotivated by the entire market situation right now. And I really don't know how to address it, because I mean that's a scenario which is there in a lot of organizations currently. I know of a lot of colleagues of mine who are working in different organizations, some of whom are working with really reputed IT firms as well. And they keep on coming back and telling their stories of how they themselves or how their colleagues are demotivated, and how, you know, once the market is up, they'll be the first people to jump. Like, leave aside the best performers, the HR itself is ready to jump. So, I mean, how do you address that?
You give them a very difficult project. And give them a very short period of time and tell them to come back to you, and you'll see a difference.
Very good afternoon. I'm Commander Rastogi. Well, you have brought up rightly, and some people have commented that HR people, if they have to contribute from downturn to upturn, they should have access to the boardroom. Somebody told that they should go to the floor and see what exactly is happening. But you brought out the right thing, which is that systems thinking, total system thinking about the total organization. Now, that amongst the HR people and the experts of departments, they may be expert in their own department, but they don't have the total thinking in general. Now, which way you handle in Microsoft to bring among the leaders at different levels that they have the total thinking of the system, whether by individual communication or by coaching or mentoring, or by generalistic training of the leaders, which way?
So we actually have all of those, right?
Okay.
We actually, for a certain level and above, we very diligently identify mentors, internal mentors, right? So, for example, if we hire somebody from the outside who doesn't know Microsoft, you know, and is working in has to work with a very matrix, we are a very matrix organization, has, you know, 20 different stakeholders, and it can be pretty daunting. We actually find them somebody within our whole world who will actually help a particular skill, right? We also identify external coaches for people, right? We also have twice a year a very detailed conversation about their ability, capability, their scalability. We have a conversation in March about scalability and their future. And then in August, September, we have a conversation about how they're actually doing against all of that. So it's not a one time or a one approach. It has to be very different approaches, and we do a lot of interventions. We do a lot of, you know, learning programs or whatever it's called. But we don't. We were trying to put a band-aid on many things, and we were trying to do a one-size-fits-all. But we are moving away from that approach and saying, let's just, you know, really go after the real issue. One of the things that I've really tried to push in the time that I've been there is, let's not hire for the job, let's hire for potential, right? And that's been a huge focus for us, because you can shape an individual to do a particular job that's much easier, but you can't instill certain things in an individual. So that's sort of been an approach. Okay?
And we take one last question and then we will stop. Yeah.
For long presentation. I'm going to ask a question which Anish had raised. In fact, the companies in India will have to revisit performance management systems. There are certain anomalies, there are certain difficulties which we face. The question I have for you is like, how Microsoft India, how do you benchmark your PMS systems vis-a-vis, say, a best company like Google? The question, the text I ask is like, when the process PMS identifies underperformers. So how do you break this process?
So I've come to one conclusion: you can never have the right performance plan, right? So you but you have to sort of create something for yourself, which really caters to your needs. You have to understand what is the need of the organization. We don't compare ourselves to Google, because we were in Google 20 years ago, right? We are at a very different stage. they are at a very different stage. And we introduced a tool called My Microsoft about 2.5 years ago, which is a global tool. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. We've just learned to live with it. But each year we continue to tweak it in some way, shape or form. From my perspective, what I try to do here is, I think HR organization and the leaders depend too much on resolving your problems through a performance management system. You are not going to solve your problems through a performance management system. If you don't augment that with many other things, right, which is, are your managers giving monthly feedback? You know, are you setting your yearly commitments the right way, with the right focus? Are you really being consistent? One of our biggest challenges is calibration of talent, right? My team spends days during our process where we calibrate talent. You know, how do you stack that talent? We've been hiring a lot, we've made some hiring mistakes. Have we done enough to really weed out the performance? Do you really have to wait for the performance cycle to weed that out, to really address that? So my philosophy is, one, I already said, you will never have the best, you will never have the right performance management system. You've got to think about what your organization needs, what stage of maturity are they at, what problem are you trying to solve. It again goes back to system thinking. What problem are you trying to solve with your performance management system? And then you sort of go, and every organization at a different level of maturity will have a very different looking performance management system. And I actually quite like what we have today. It actually works for us. And but what I also like is we've augmented it with many different things. We have a mid-year career discussion where we talk about your performance in the last 6 months, but the focus of the conversation is more future-looking. Saying, what do you want to do? And that's where a lot of the reshuffling conversations also happen. Saying, why don't you go to X, Y, Z? So you know, again, augment it and sort of think about what problem you're trying to solve with that. Okay?
Great.
All right.